Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Covenant Calendar. This is the day of our Creator, and in it we will be blessed. We're looking at Genesis 1 specifically today. Or, that's the Hebrew word for light. This light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. Think about that. This light shineth in the darkness. Was the darkness first, or was light first? That's the whole premise of this study. Which came first, light or darkness? Here's the question I mentioned earlier. What color is the tav that determines when you begin Shabbat? Does the Shabbat begin at dawn, or does it begin at sunset? How is it that the color of a tav can determine when the Shabbat begins? Well, it goes a little bit deep, but let me tell you, let me suggest to you, by the end of this series of study, I believe you will understand why it is that a tav and the color of the tav can tell you when the Shabbat begins. Is this serious? It's about as serious as it gets. The focus of this study series, there's the tav, and then there's on the right side is the paleo, or sorry, that's the ancient tav. Did darkness reign first? How many times have you heard that darkness was first from people that do not understand the dawn day? They don't understand how it is that light was first. So the question here of this whole study and continuing further is, did darkness reign first? In Genesis 1:1, was darkness there? That's the question. The next question, does Shabbat start at sunset? We are looking into Genesis 1, verse 2, and it's the first section, A, of verse 2. And we're going to be attempting to restore our understanding of Yahuwah's character, letter by letter. No, not in the English letters, in the Hebrew letters. Restoring Yahuwah's character, or is it restoring our understanding of Yahuwah's character? This is an end time message, and it's from Yah's Covenant Calendar. There's our website address down there below if you want to take that and join us. Tav tampering. Who's playing with the tav? How come there's a tav missing in our study sources? And what does that have to do with the start of the Shabbat? Questions for you about Genesis 1, verse 2a. When you see the little a there, if you're not used to that, that just means the first section of verse 2. You might see B and C. These are different sections of that verse. In this study, you'll probably only see A. Why does it seem that the tav has been dropped? Is there something to be gained by removing a tav? In our search today, will the tav reveal two characters? One character being Kodesh, and one character not Kodesh. This goes back to the color of the tav, and I hope that you, in your mind, can color your tav to your understanding. I have put in colors here. As you know, I like colors, but I hope that you're able to see the importance of the colors. Tav can be a mark, it can be a sign, a seal, and a covenant. And it can be a signature. A signature. You might hear me talking about artists. A tav can indicate who the artist is. If every artist on this earth painted his pictures in the exact same manner and it didn't have a signature of who they are, what a boring picture platform this would be. But as we know, artists have their own signature. So I'm going to ask you, when Yahusha created this earth, did he place his signature on it? And if he did place his signature on this earth, what would it look like? What color would it be? I want you to consider the Aleph Tav, as seen in verse 1. We're going to be touching on that fairly heavily today. Is it remotely possible that Yahuwah impregnated his signature, his character, on his created product named Eretz, when that would be earth, when Elohim spoke it into immediate existence? He said, I did it suddenly. It was immediate. So what artist does not imprint their character signature on their product, whatever it may be? Whether you're carving something out of wood, whether you're painting with paint or painting with water paints, whatever. What artist doesn't give their characteristics, their impersonation of what they think onto that product? An example right here, you will see in my slides an awful lot of color, and I try to color things, coordinate with color. That's my characteristic. I learned that from a young boy when I was painting or coloring the doodle arts when I was a kid. When it was minus 40 outside, I had nothing to do other than color. That's my personality. That's my signature. That's my seal, sign, and mark of who I am. Does Yahusha have a signature? This study on the first cycle of creation still questions the word was. Where do we find that? Well, we find it in Genesis 1, verse 2. And the earth was, is what we commonly read. We're questioning that. Is that word was, is that correct? Or is that a contamination? Genesis 1, verse 2a in the KJV reads, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. So I ask you, is that correct? How does was oppose the profound implications of Tav? You know, think about that for a bit. I'm going to read that again. How does this word that we have been given in English, was, the transliteration, how does that oppose the profound implications of Tav? Why does H 1961 have so many variations? We touched on this earlier. These variations, I struggled with these. That's why I'm trying to bring them forward. I want you to see these variations. When you look up in the Strongs, in this Genesis 1, verse 2a, you will see this word, Hayah. When you look up in other editions, other study sources, you will find the word Yete, and it's H 1961. The KJV has was. The scriptures is translated to us as came to be. Then we go over to the ISA. We see the same word, H 1961 TN. It's got the same root letters in it, but it's a different variation. All these variations are coming from the root letters, and we need to dig into these root letters to get the base understanding. This word on the right, TN, we're going to be looking at that quite a bit today. And then we come to Bible Hub. Look at these here. I hope you see my cursor. It's the same H 1961. Strong's has it as Hayah. Bible Hub has it Hayata. Oh, how come this T is here? T. Notice I have it into a different font. I do this explicitly because I want your attention. Why is this symbolized, or symbolization, I guess, of a tav? Why is it here? How come it's missing right here? And how come it's here? Hayata. Now, the reason I looked at this, the reason I come onto this understanding is because I first learned this verse with this word here out of the interlinear scripture analyzer, and I will pronounce it how I learned it in my own mind. Iete. That's just my personal the way I think. I saw this word, iete. And I kept going through my studies as I was studying years ago, and well, how come this word iete is here? And yet I go to Strong's and it's haya. It's a different word. No, it can't be H1961. It's different. But then I started to learn. This is a transliteration. It's a different interpreter or translator, if you will, that decided this is the phonic of how he wanted it. Haya and note, notov. And it's a different translator that gave us this one here. He decided, or she decided, they wanted to have this according to the original Hebrew manuscript with a tav, and it's got a T here. Hayata. And then over in the interlinear scripture analyzer, we have over here a totally different spelling altogether. So how can it be the same? How can it still be H1961? This is Ayate, however you want to say it, Ayata, and this is Hayata. But what if you take this Hayata and you look at this word and you go, Hayata? Different letters, different way of pronouncing it, different spelling, but the same phonics. It's the same number, just a different way of saying it. So I want you to realize this variance. It's not a different word, except this has a tav. This one has a tav. This one does not. This is what this study is all about. I could put another title on it called The Missing Tav, but you're going to see that in part 3 a lot more clear. What does H1961 have to do with a signature? What causes these differences? Again, we look up here, the colored T, because I want your attention with the different phonics. The color of a letter. Looking at Strong's, between Haya and the Bible Hub, Hayata, we are going to have to do some digging in other study sources to find out what's going on with that tav. What on earth, pun intended, is happening with that tav? So, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be covering an awful lot of ground. A lot. I'm going to be going over it quickly. So Charlene organized this so that you could adjust your thinking with me, and I thank her for this. Tav. I'm just going to go through this quickly. The tav and a sign. This is where the numbers of the slides. Some of them are long, some of them are short. Genesis 1:1, creation's tav. Exodus 28:11, the two stones and the tav. That's and the shoulder stones for the shoulder garment. Number 4, Exodus 28:17-20. Again, we're looking at 12 stones on the breastplate. And then we're going to go on a little bit of a tav trail, 4a. And then number 5, tav as a sign, a seal, and a signature. Number 6, Genesis 38:18. How about Yaakov's tav, or Jacob? As you see, we're going to be covering a lot of ground, so stick with me. Number 7, tav in the breastplate stones, the Urim and the Tumim. Notice there's only 2 stones here. 8, Urim as pure light. What does that have to do with the very first minutes of creation? Number 9, Tumim as perfection. Could that also be at the very first minute of creation? Think about that. Would the Urim and Tumim, would that have the characteristics of Yahuwah? Number 10, Urim and Tumim and the Aleph Tav. Number 11, Tav and light. Number 12, earth established in light. There's that word established. Number 13, Owr, First Light. Number 14, Clash of the Tovs. That title there will bring you into part 3. What color are those Tovs? And we're also going to be speaking about this. We'll also be speaking about how does fire align with Tov? Did you know that Tov could indicate a fire? I know. Sounds strange, but let's look at it. Here we are. Tov, a sign, a seal, a signature, and a mark. All of the above underscores covenant. In English, the Tov equates to a sign, a seal, a signature, and a mark, and all reveal a life commitment in covenant. If you have no commitment, if you are extremely variable, there is no covenant. So on the left, we're going to be looking at some of these words. On the left here, you will see sign. You follow that across, there's the number of the word, and you'll see it has a colored T, because in that Hebrew letter, there is a Tav. We go to seal, there's the number. We have Chathem. Here we have the Tav and an H that is colored also with a different font. Why is that? Because this is the Tav He root. That's why it's colored differently. It symbolizes two different words in Hebrew. Chathemek, if I can say that, and Chathem. I have trouble pronouncing these, but it's kind of fun. Then we go to seal, H 1961. We saw this earlier. Tav He, DM. This symbolizes the Tav He root, two different letters. Signature and mark. Uther, Tav He root. Covenant, Berit, Tav He root. So just to let you know what we're going to be looking at, please note there's 5 words transliterated from the Hebrew, and they contain the very important Tav He root. So we're considering the Tav He root word. Up here is the Paleo Tav, and over here is the Paleo He. We come on to the right on the top here. This is the ancient Tav and the ancient He. Now, if you think this looks like a man raising his arms going, hey, look, pay attention, I want your attention, you're right. That's exactly what it is. When you see this He, it's drawing your attention. Sometimes it's demanding your attention. Yahuwah has the authority to demand your attention. Whether you pay attention or not, that's your choice. But it's demanding attention. As this study is understood today, remember, as we learn, it's a curve. Understanding Yahuwah's message is a learning curve. That's why I put here understanding this today. A sign of oneself is an observable commitment to that type of marker. That is covenant. A seal is a physical portrayal of commitment in absolute. That is covenant. A mark is a visual or spiritual indication of the character and type or person in certain terms. That is covenant. A signature is a sign, a seal, and a mark that perfectly reveals a commitment to a determined lifestyle. That is covenant. Now, on each sentence, place covenant first and reread each one of those. You can do this on your own time when you view this later. It is our understanding that the He Tav root is all of the above. And when certain context is required, prefixes and suffixes are supplied for the appropriate context. Hence, you will see the Tav He root with very many different letters around it. So this is the perspective today for this study. And so let's move forward. You see this little number on the left here, number 1, this is the first category. When you see that come down, You can recognize we're moving into a different category. So what is so special about the 22nd letter of the alphabet, the Tav? I'm going to read this verse. Yet Yahuwah said to him, not so. Anyone killing Cain, sevenfold shall he be avenged. So Yahuwah placed a sign on Cain, by no means to smite him, should anyone find him. Notice I have this encased with a red box, an arrow. That word for sign, you see it's transliterated down here. It's ot. Notice it has a tav right there. This is the first mention of H22.6, sign, and ot, in conjunction with a person. When Cain slew Abel in anger, Yahuwah applied very appropriate severe consequences. Cain voiced his concern for his own well-being, justifiably so. Yahuwah, out of grace, applied mercy and provided a life-saving mark, a life-saving sign, and a life-saving signature and or oath on the head of Cain. In reality, it was a salvational mark to preserve life. It would serve to preserve Cain's life on this earth. Now, you might have noticed, for those that are new to this, I have Cain spelt differently than the English. This is to reflect the Hebrew letters. So I hope you're able to understand that and go with me. So this is, again, Cain. Notice the tav in this word. It's a signature, a sign, a seal, and a covenant. And this tav is directly connected to the aleph. You'll notice this straight line in the middle. That's the aleph, or sorry, that's the vav letter. It's a connection. And vav is a kind of like a nail. You hang something on it, or it connects ideas, thoughts. Just want you to note this. The aleph and the vav, the aleph and the tav connected by the vav. Yahuwah's tav content in oath, or the sign. Yahuwah's sign, a mark, a personal signature, a personal covenant seal for life, not just for Cain, for us too. So here is a look at Tav. This is from Jeff Benner's vantage point. Jeff Benner has a lot of material explaining the Hebrew language. If you want to look at that, I'm positive that you would benefit from that. Mr. Benner also expressly reveals the concept of the Tav to be an identifying signature. You'll see my arrow point here. He has it. He has it as a mark and a sign also. The modern Hebrew, Arabic, and Greek names for this letter is Tav or Tau, a Hebrew word meaning mark. Hebrew, Greek, and Arabic agree that the sound for this letter is T. Why do I say this? Because many times you're going to see these letters with or these words, I should say, that have the letter Tav in it, translated to us as TH, a th sound. Now, I question that. I do not know where that H came from. I personally like to see just the T for the Tav. It just seems to be better for me. I'm not sure why, but I have trouble with it. Just letting you know. I'm telling you this because you're going to see different spellings for just the Tav. So the question is, where is the first location of the Tav found in scriptures? The first time you know of a Tav, where is it? Well, would it surprise you to find the Tav sign, seal, and signature right in the very first word, Genesis 1:1? Right here in these boxes, that is the Tav letter in modern Hebrew. Right there. And then we have two more times you'll see a Tav here and here in these Hebrew words, Genesis 1:1. 3 times this Tav covenant signature is embedded in the scriptures. It's in the very first statement. The first Tav mark is established at the very end of the first word in the first verse. Is it possible this Tav has monumental importance? So what is it that Yahusha desires us to understand about this Hebrew letter's significance at creation? In English, we just read, and Elohim created the earth and the heavens. Yeah, well, that's a pretty nice title. Nice introduction. Doesn't tell us a whole lot. We just tell us that there was something happened. But when you dig into the Hebrew, it's more like a documentary. It's absolutely astounding what's found in these letters. So let's continue. This Tav was the first seal of Elohim seeded from Zion onto this earth. Please recognize that this word seeded. If it's not seeded from Zion, it does not belong in Yahuwah's kingdom. Everything without exception on this earth must be seeded from Zion. If it does not come from Yahuwah's kingdom, it does not belong here and it will not last. So when you hear these words seeded, that means it was instilled onto this earth as planned out of righteousness from Yahuwah. I want you to note this word established. Just going to recognize this word for later on. It's important. It's very important. You're going to see this word in combined with information we'll be speaking about with Yehuda or Judah in English terms. Exodus 28, verse 11. We're going to be spending a fair bit of time on this verse, different words. It's an incredibly interesting verse. Positive identification of the 2 stones of Yisrael. Yeah, you'll see I got positive spelt wrong if you're sticking with the English. I do that for a purpose because I'm indicating tav. Very, very serious. Here there's 2 stones. Let's read it. With the handiwork of lapidary, as the engravings of a seal, you shall engrave the 2 stones with the names of the sons of Israel. You shall make them set round about with mountings of gold, filigree. Let's look at this word for engravings. Oh, let me try to say this. Patuche. It has a tav in here. This is the authority of the gravings. They were to be a sign, a seal, and a signature. Would that include covenant? These 2 stones? These 2 stones with the 12 tribal names. There were to be 6 names on each stone, and they were to be engraved, tav, on them. Tav meaning it was to be a sign and a seal. So we come up here, we see this word seal in the verse. It's identified by a seal. So I'm going to ask you, I want you to think about this. What formulates a seal? We'll be looking at this in a bit. The command to Moshe was for an engraver of stones to create 2 onyx stones to be fashioned with all the names of the tribes of Yisrael engraved on them. There was to be engraved 6 names on each stone. This was to reveal a covenant of those who represented Yisrael for as long as this earth exists. These 2 signature stones were for the shoulders of Aharon. 2 positive stones of Yisrael. The 2 engraved stones with the 12 names of Yisrael that were on them were for a sign. They were to be a sealed mark and indicate a direct covenanted connection to Yahuwah. And remember, this is under the instruction of Yahuwah. So we're going to look at this word seal. What is seal? What makes up this word? Well, if we look at this first letter, it's a het. And I want you to notice this arrow is pink. It's the same color as this word. Trying to color coordinate here. I don't always win that effort, but let's give it a shot. Ket. Of course, that first letter is kind of hard to pronounce. Kind of sounds like you're clearing your throat, but that's how it's supposed to be spoken in English, or yeah, in Hebrew. I'll get it straight. Ket. That which surrounds, it contains, it supports and distinguishes. It can be like a sheep's fold, and it can indicate a sanctuary and or a home. So it kind of contains something. What might it contain? There's the tav. Oh, yes, I forgot. This is the ancient symbol for the word chet. This is the ancient symbol for tav. It's a sign, a seal, a mark, and a covenant. Would that indicate identification? Would this container, this seal, would it contain some ability to identify? What about this last letter with the orange arrow? Well, if we come down here, here's the ancient mem letter. And if you're thinking this looks like the waves of the ocean, you'd be right on. Mem. It's an incubator of consistent frequency, or can be mikvah also. Consistent frequency. This goes back to the consistent frequencies emitted by Yahuwah. His frequency of righteousness does not end. It's consistent, it's persistent, it never ends. And also, this mem can indicate origin. So here we have a container that holds the idea of a seal or mark and a covenant, and it's continuous. This consistently and persistently goes out from Yahuwah, goes out with his frequency of righteousness. That's what's in this word kethem, which is seal, which is on these stones for Yisrael. It identified the 12 tribes, 6 on each shoulder. So this word seal becomes pretty important. The 2 stones were a physical revelation, a reminder of Yahuwah's covenant to provide life's essentials, both physical and spiritual, consistently for Yisrael. And when the Kohen Hagadol, or the high priest, put on that shoulder garment, those stones sat on his shoulders, symbolically letting him know that he personally, along with his fellow priests, they bore the burden of Yisrael. They bore the burden of the tribes to Yahuwah. They were responsible. We're going to see more of this coming up. Bearing the brunt. If you're not familiar with that word brunt, that's the responsibility, the weight of responsibility. I'm using that word because it has a T on the end. T symbolizing Tav. They're bearing the responsibility, shouldering the burden of these stones. So why were the 2 stones with 12 names for the shoulder garment? Well, I've gone over this. I hope you see these stones rotating here. This is where they were placed. Aharon and his lineage were to bear the brunt of responsibility symbolically on their shoulders to represent the tribes before Yahuwah. Now, when I was younger, when our water used to freeze up, my father had a yoke, went across your shoulders, and there was a rope coming down, and I used to go over to where the spring was, and I'd chop out the ice, dip the buckets in the spring, and dip the water out into the buckets. On go the yoke. I bore the burden, the weight of the water on my shoulders over to the house. This is the brunt of responsibility, the weight of getting water. This is just a very, very, very minuscule example of the tribe, mainly of the Kohen Hagadol, bearing the responsibility of these tribes on his shoulder. He spoke to Yahuwah through the Urim and Tumim of the situations that would need to be related to Yahuwah. He was bearing the brunt of the responsibility. So let's progress to the 12 individual separated stones. There comes number 4. We're on to another segment here. The ephod and the breastplate. I'm going to read this verse here. Exodus 28, verse 17. And thou shalt set it in settings of stones, even 4 rows of stones. The first row shall be a sardius, a topaz, and a carbuncle. This shall be the first row. And the second row shall be an emerald, a sapphire, and a diamond. And the third row a ligure, an agate, and an amethyst. And the fourth row a beryl, and an onyx, and a jasper. They shall be set in gold for their enclosings. Back to this top box here. Is there a positive identification of the 12 stones of Israel? Do you see 2 stones the same here? No. There's a Tav identification purpose in here. There's a mark, a sign, a seal, and a covenant in each stone that applies directly to each tribe. This Tav effect identifies. Note here, different versions of scripture vary in the individual names of the 12 tribes. Are you going to see a variance? Yes. Our study sources sometimes have that. That's why it's important to use lots of study sources. Go through them all so you can determine for sure what you're looking at. Exodus 28, 17 to 20. The 12 stones of Israel. Next came the command to Moshe to create a breastplate for Aharon. Remember, we were speaking about the shoulder garment earlier. Now we're transitioning to the breastplate for Aharon. It contained sardius, topaz, carbuncle, emerald, sapphire, diamond, ligure, agate, amethyst, beryl, onyx, and jasper. Each tribe had a unique stone which visually reminded the viewer of each individual tribe identity. No stone was to be alike. Individual appearance and responsibility. 12 stones, positively sealed. Again, we see this word seal, them, sealed. There's that tav, identification factor. It identifies through a sign, a seal, a mark, and a signature. So we see this word, they shall become, tien. There's a transformation period. Those stones started out as a normal stone. They had to be worked upon. There was a transformation. They started out as one type of sorry, I'm lost my words here. One type of a stone, or one form of that same stone, and they were transformed into a different looking stone. Same internals, but different viewing. Transformation. So if I want you to note here, it has a tav and a hey in this word. There's your tav hey root. Again, it's 1961. And it has a transformation time frame here. They shall become. This is important. I want you to see this. Why wasn't this transformation idea available or made available in Genesis 1, verse 2a? It's the same tav hey root. Why here, but not there? Coming back to this seal and these stones, these 12 stones, each stone was designed to identify Tav and distinguish Tav, an individual mark, Tav, by a signature, Tav. I hope I'm stressing the Tav enough. You're probably going to be tired of this by the time the study is done, but it is important. The process of character refinement is portrayed in stone. Through a progression of work authorized by Yahuwah, each tribal stone, read character identity, would be transformed and shall become an identity acceptable to Yahuwah. The stone's transformation took days. The character takes eons, and it is still being refined even today. 12 positive stones of Yisrael transformed. Note, there's a transformation process that is so important. Bearing the brunt. One more time, we look at this. Note, this derivation of H 1961 with a Tav contains a Nun. I'm pointing right here to this tall vertical letter. This is the final Nun, as it's said in Hebrew. Nun. This contains life. That's what this letter Nun represents, life. This factor, in effect, identifies Yahuwah. Thien. There's the Tav. There's the He. The transformation factor is seen in these two letters, and it has the authority of the two Yods. We're going to be looking at this. Yod is the hand of Yah or the arm of Yah, very basically. So he identifies the authority of the Tav, and it's attached with the Nun, life. Pretty powerful word. Thien. Note, the Tav starting the Hebrew word, Thien. Each normal stone underwent a covenanted transformation, note the T's, to represent the collective name of Yisrael. Yahuwah placed the seal. It is his signature to be found in that Tav. It's under his command. It's under his authority. This is what you will do to be my people, basically is what he was saying. So what is similar to H 1961 as found in Genesis 1 verse 2a and in comparison to the same number, H 1961, in Exodus 28 verse 21? What is similar? Let's have a look here. Well, both verses speak of a dedicated transformation, and both use the same root letters, He Tav. And we look at the interlinear scripture analyzer, we see in this verse, verse 2, we see a ta. It has the Tav and it has the He root letter. And it's a dedicated transformation process. Well, what's next? Why then is there a transformation here, yet not found in many study sources for Genesis 1 verse 2a? So we look over here on this same letter, the Tav He, just look at that. That has a transformation process also. Why is there no transformation process in some study sources that we look at in this verse 2a? Why? Who did it? And to whose advantage would that be to drop that transformation idea and the identification of who did it? What advantage is there? When do you start your Shabbat? Would that have anything to do with it? Darkness or light? Positive transformation for Yisrael's 12 tribes. Again, as with the first two stones, these 12 stones had to be transformed. See, they shall become. That's what the transliteration given to us is. They shall become. They were transformed from one state of existence into a covenanted, commanded state, as instructed by Yahuwah. Very, very serious work. These stones were to be a unique signature stones, a visually distinguishing representation of each individual tribe. H 1961, Thein as shall become is an ordained transformation from Yahuwah. So, how do we positively know from the Hebrew that this transformation was ordained by Yahuwah? Well, I went through this verbally, but we're going to take a little bit closer look at it. Thein, as H 1961, reveals a transitional event. We see that in the yellow highlight down here, shall become. Why was Thein not written in Genesis 1, verse 2, and instead Heyatah is there? This word here it has shall become, and that would be very, very nice to see in Genesis 1, verse 2. When it says the earth was, it should be the earth shall become. So why wasn't this word used there? Well, I want you to look at the two Yod letters. You see my cursor here. I hope you can see this. There's two little marks, two little vertical marks here. That's Yod, Yod in Hebrew. Observe the two Yod letters. These letters positively identify, by their definition, the works of Yah as facilitated by the hand of Yah. Now, this is very basic definitions. There's other ways of looking at these letters, but for this study, this is the context that applies very securely. So these two little marks here can be identified as Yod and the works of Yah and the hand of Yah. This word, if used in Genesis 1, verse 2a, it would plant a brutal reality in opposition to Yahuwah's Tumim, perfect character. How could this be? Why opposition? What would this do? How can this be? The question here, was it Yahuwah that transformed the perfect creation intended to support life into a desolate waste of chaos, vacancy, and contamination, tohu and bohu, that can only expose death, a dark tav? So if this word was used in Genesis 1, 2, and it had these two Yod letters in here so that it indicated the operative tav, as in the character that was bringing forth the tohu and bohu. If this word was there, then it would indicate by these two letters that it was Yahuwah that brought forth the tohu and bohu and the choshech darkness. That's why this word is not there, because that would be an absolute blasphemy to the name of Yahuwah. Yahuwah is perfect beyond our comprehension. This earth was created in absolute perfection, nothing short of it. So how is it that this earth had that transformative period when we see the Tav He root that says shall become a transformation period? And there's a Tav that should be there. What color is that Tav in Hayatah? Is that Tav a dark Tav? Does that indicate death through Tohu and Bohu? Or is that Tav a blue Tav that indicates that Yahuwah brought forth Tohu and Bohu, confusion and vacancy? That's the importance of understanding the color of the Tav. Which Tav is in Genesis 1, 2? What color is it? Was that Tav, was that a covenanted signature with death? The Hebrew letters here in Bible Hub make you absolutely certain that there is supposed to be a Tav in that word in Genesis 1, 2, 1 verse 2, Hayatah. Go through your other resources and study the original Hebrew letters, and you will see beyond any shadow of a doubt that Tav is supposed to be in that verse. So why is it that many of our study sources remove this black Tav and they cover it up and they exclude or remove the idea that there was a transformation period? What are they trying to cover up? Note here, Bible Hub rightfully has Hayatah. It rightfully includes the Tav. May I suggest to you, in my opinion, it's black, clearly indicating exactly who assaulted Yahuwah's perfect creation. May I suggest to you, this was nothing short of a signed contract with death from the adversary, the one that assaulted the first cycle of creation, that one that wanted to destroy Yahuwah's perfect creation with tohu and bohu and choshek, contaminated darkness. Is it important to understand what color that tav is and why it should be there? And what does it have to do with starting your Sabbath? What if darkness came first? Then would our Sabbath start at sunset? Strong's H1961 Haya deletes the tav to remove the signature of the adversary. How can we understand when we don't get proper information, when something has been hidden from us? Contextually, and notice I stress those letters, contextually, there is transformation in the H1961 of Genesis 1 verse 2a. Contextually, it's there, whether people want to hide it or not. Both editions recognize H1961, but one edition negates the transformation factor and removes the tav, removes our ability to identify who it is that brought on the was. The earth was in tohu and bohu. Really? Yahuwah created this earth in utter confusion and expects us to live in it? What if we accept that tav is supposed to be there and the proper translation of that word is, as the scriptures have it, come to be? The earth came to be from a perfect creation. It came to be tohu and bohu. Does that make more sense? And also, we have a black tav here. I took the liberty to color it black because I personally believe beyond 100% that that tav should be black. That identification is there to prove that the one assaulting the first cycle of creation was a dark character. It transformed, it came to be from a perfect creation into a contaminated state. So I ask you, when you read your scripture and you see the word was, could was indicate darkness reigned first? It has no tav. You can't identify anything. You have no indication that there is a transformation from one identity into a completely different identity. That has been removed from you in certain sources. Is that a problem? Is it haya, no tav? Or is it hayata, with the tav? There is a brilliantly clear reason why the Ruach HaKodesh inspired Moshe to feature the highly specified word hayata in Genesis 1:2, as retained in the Bible Hub and the Interlinear Scripture Analyzer, and also many, many other sources too. But you need to look for them. If you happen to go to the extremely popular Strongs, and that's the only source that you use for your study, you will not see that. I'll leave it at that. Yahuwah desires us to understand light was established first, in verse 1, and it was the evil assault of Satan that imposed the chaos and vacancy, the tohu and bohu, within the choshek, darkness. There's that tav, the identification. Please allow me to suggest it's a dark tav. This is the reason the tav in Hayatah is colored black of Genesis 1, verse 2, and must be preserved as Yahuwah intended for full clarity of this character identification and the resulting events. And there's a lot more coming on this, especially in part 3. But for now, let's look at Exodus 28, verse 21 again. We're going to be looking more on this verse. The stones, they shall come to be 12 with their names, according to the stones of the sons of Israel, as the engravings of a seal, each with its name, shall they become to be for the 12 tribes. Positive names in covenant. So we're looking at the word for names right now. This is the transliteration right here. The letters is Shin, Mem, Tav, Mem, Shamim, names. Want you to notice this word for names has a tav in it. This is going to become important shortly. See the tav here? Exodus 28, verse 21 lists 2 instances of the Hebrew word for names. Both carry the weight of a tav signature, designed to distinguish and positively identify the assigned character. This designation of a responsible name in covenant is embedded within the tav covenant displayed in stone. So what is the Hebrew descriptive word for this unique situation? Does it also contain a tav? Note here, again, tav identifies the who, the character, the mark, and the signature of the who. And in this case, the who is the tribes of Yisrael. But we're going to go on a tav trail here. This is a subset of point number 4 and the 12 stones. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. We will return to this channel shortly. I'm sure you've heard that before. Exodus 28, verse 21. The same verse again. Let's go over it carefully. And the stones shall be, note the identification, according to the names of the children of Yisrael. 12. According to their names, like the engravings of a signet, every one according to his name. They shall be for the 12 tribes. Now, a little side issue here. How come I have signet colored? Why the emphasis? Because when we look at Yehuda and Tamar a little bit later, he gave her a signet. This tells you right here a very important factor about this signet idea. Their names, like the engravings of a signet, there's a name on there. Very, very important. Okay, let's move on with this. Let's go down to this word here. In here we find name. See this here? It says, I hope you can follow my cursor. His, on the left, his name, singular. His name, the name of him. There's no tav here. Why not? We just looked at the word earlier and there was tavs. It's the same number, 8034, but no tav. Why not? Note here the absence of a tav. I've got it here enlarged so you can see this. Shin, Mem, Vav, no tav. On slide 31, we saw the same root letters, Shin, Mem, but it had a tav. Why is there no identification here? You want my name on a stone, but why is there no tav on this word for name? Well, to answer that question, I want you to notice this H1961 word. in the green box, Thin. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but we're going to have a visual aspect of this right now. If it'll work. Thin. Identifying the authority. Does Yahuwah leave this in question for authority? No, he does not. Identifying the authority. Watch these arrows. Again, I mentioned to you earlier, these two little marks here are the modern Hebrew marks for Yod. So here there's a double Yod. You will see Yod, Yod. Revisiting Thin. There's the Tav, He. Those are the two Hebrew letters. Tav, He, root word. So this Thin with the double Yod, Yod here, you can see the eyes representing the Yod, as H1961, which reveals, note this, a transitional event. Transitional. So who was this transition orchestrated by? Whom? Who was the authority behind that? This marking of the stones. Is it the names? Did they have no authority? No. Look at the Hebrew words. Yahuwah gives you, he establishes his authority beyond any shadow of a doubt. Yod, Yod. This is the hand of Yah. It has a tav over here to make you understand, or to allow you to understand, this is the identification process. The hand of Yah has the authority for the engraving of these stones. This tav indicates the authority for the command to engrave the names, revealing a marker and a covenanted seal acceptable in righteousness. Tzadikah. Yahuwah is tzadikah. Yahuwah does not leave us to second guess the authority. He says, these stones shall become because I have commanded it. And what does it do? Let's bring you back to this line right here. Remember, that's life. Nun, the promulgation of life. It promotes life. If you write these names, if you engrave these names on stone under my covenanted seal, under my authority, and the hey is bring attention to this, look and pay attention, it will bring you to this noon, life. Suddenly, this word becomes extremely powerful. This is the authority. Yahuwah says, engrave these stones with your names. It's under my covenant, and I give you life. Basically, that's what it indicates. So we're returning here to the sealing precept, and I hope you bear with me because, yes, I'm jumping around a bit here. So just work with me. We're going to look at this word seal, translated as into the English. And we're going to have a look at what does the English say about the sealing precept. There's going to be two concepts on this slide. This is from the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Number one, you see this little squiggle or star mark, whatever it is. A device with a cut or raised emblem. It's a symbol or word used especially to certify a signature or, look for it, authenticate a document. Authenticate, that's a pretty powerful word. Dropping down to the very bottom because these don't have our contextual application with what we're doing. Down at the bottom here, this is powerful, everyone. I want you to read this carefully. A seal that is a symbol or a mark of office. If you look on the right, you'll see in here that's got these two plates, they are squeezed together. My sister used to make these for her living. You take these little plates and you insert them in here. These plates have had an area removed so that when you squash or crush the paper together, you'll see this is a crushed or embossed signature. This is raised paper right here. Raised, it's identical to Braille It's a raised situation so that when you run your hand over this seal, you can feel it with your fingers. This is a seal. It is designed so it cannot be tampered with. If it is tampered with, it is no longer viable. It's done. You have to get another sealed paper. This used to be used. I don't know if it's still used today, but it used to be very, very popular, these seals. A mark of office. Now this slide, the same definitions from Merriam-Webster. We're going to see quite a few of them here. I want you to read these with me. To confirm or make secure by, or as if by a seal. Now, here's an interesting one. I marked it green. To solemnize something such as a marriage for eternity by a Mormon rite. I found that a little interesting. And next one, to set or affix an authenticating seal. Authenticate or ratify. Ratification, we hear that quite often here at Covenant Calendar. Next one coming up, to mark with a stamp or seal, usually as an evidence of standard exactness, legal size, weight, or capacity, or mercantile quality. To fasten, this is a big one, to fasten with or as if with a seal to prevent tampering, to prevent the removing of a tav. Oh, maybe that's not written there, but it did come out of my mouth. Next one coming up. To determine irrevocably or indisputably. That's the seriousness of a seal. How about that tav? The seal is established for security and identification purposes of the ones responsible. The 12 stones of the breastplate with the tribal names embedded on them were a sign of responsibility applied to each tribe, responsibility required and answerable to Yahuwah. We're going to move forward here. Let's go look at with Yehuda and his Tav seal. Yehuda realized the full weight of the signature items by which he was determined as the father of Tamar's child. There was no mistake. It was a positive identification through his seal, his signature. Yehuda's character through signature had been exposed. Looking at here at this verse, Genesis 38, verse 18, Yehuda's signature. Let's read it. He replied, what is the, note this word, what is the surety that I should give you? She answered, your seal, with your twist and your staff that is in your hand. He gave them to her and came to her, and she became pregnant by him. Well, that's the English. That's what we read. If we look at this word in Hebrew, it's chethmek. Interesting. Again, I'm not sure why the H is here, because that's a tav, but chethmek. It has a tav. Identification. It's the seal. He gave her his seal. Some verses we'll read, or some translations, it will be a signet. Remember what I mentioned about the signet? It has a name on it. I want you to note the tav in each of these prominent words. Tamar requested a physical oath or covenant in her hand, and she received a double portion. Again, tav. Yehuda established his signature. Note the word established, pretty serious. It has a tav. Note this word, H2029, uther. If we look at this word here in the transliteration, she's becoming pregnant. It suddenly gets very, very, very serious. His weight of responsibility and the identification process through this tav. Why am I why am I hanging on this? Why am I trying to emphasize this? Because this is revealing the seriousness of the Tav in Genesis 1, verse 2. It identifies beyond any shadow of a doubt a character. Here, Yehuda established his signature, his DNA characteristic within Tamar. Please note the presence of the Tav in this word. Genesis 38, verse 24. And it came to be about 3 months after that Yehuda was informed, saying, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has whored, and see, she has conceived by whoring. And Yehuda said, bring her out and let her be burned. Pretty serious. When she was brought out, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, by the man whom these belong, let me read that again. By the man to whom these belong, I am pregnant. And she said, please examine whose these are, the seal and the cord and the staff. Ethechmuth. There's your Tav. There's another Tav. It suddenly gets very, very serious. There is a 100% possibility of identifying exactly who was the father of this child. This Tav has the ability to pinpoint exactly who that was. Personal signature for identification. It's the very same Tav that's in Genesis 1, verse 2. The very same ability to identify. And Yehuda examined and said, she has been more righteous than I, because I did not give her to Shelah, my son, and he never knew her again. Tav. Clearly, Yehuda knew the weight that his seal, cord, and staff had provided. It was positive identification. Note also that the word for cord, a twist, it also contains tav, identification. Again, Genesis 1:1. Remember the tavs in Genesis 1:1? What color were they? Are they anything less? Do they have the ability to identify a signature of the one in Genesis 1:1? Are they anything less? Tamar demanded a surety from Yehuda in lieu of service provided without immediate payment. Scripture records Yehuda provided Tamar with extremely explicit personal identification, a seal, a cord, and his staff. So let's relate to here a bit. Let's relate to today. Yehuda provided in equal comparable importance his driver's license, his social insurance number, and his passport. That's just so we can relate to it a little bit better. Each item can be considered through the Hey Tav root letters, a sign, a seal, a mark, and a covenant, through revealing a personal lifestyle commitment of character. Now we come to Genesis 1, verses 1 and 2. Looking through these Tavs, can we recognize the same positive identification process and surety of either life, verse 1, or death, verse 2? Or are they there, these Tavs, are they just there for decoration? Do they need filler spaces for Hebrew? Or are they serving a purpose? Do we have the right to remove and drop them? Camouflage them? I don't think so. Genesis 1, verse 2. This whole exercise is to investigate if a specific character signature, read sign, will be exposed in Genesis 1, verse 2. Is there a possibility that we can identify who it was that assaulted the first cycle of creation. While retaining our improved understanding of a Tav seal, let's examine the Tav seal embedded within the breastplate of Aharon. So we're moving back to the breastplate now. Just how serious and Kodesh was this breastplate of Aharon? Will it reveal the importance of two signature marks by a Tav? Two signature marks. It's getting a whole lot more serious now with these Tav representations. The weight of responsibility in the breastplate. Let me read this verse. Thus Aharon will bear the names of the sons of Israel. Where? In the breastplate, over his heart, when he enters into the holy place for a continual remembrance before Yahuwah. And I'm going to enlarge this in this verse in the next slide, so we're going to see it easily. But I want you to see here, in the breastplate, when we enlarge this word, it's a breastplate. This is very, very important. This is where we find the judgment coming from. And in this same verse, that breastplate indicates to us where this word here, judgment, is. These two words, I just want you to see this for right now. And we're going to go into this verse enlarged. Exodus 28, verse 29. And Aharon shall bear the names of the sons of Israel on the breastplate of right ruling over his heart when he goes into the set apart place for a remembrance before Yahuwah continually. So the question is, these two stones, who were they attributed to? Whose two stones revealed the verdict in final judgment? When Aharon had a question to Yahuwah, how did he understand the answer? These two stones for the judgment, the answer came from Yahuwah. Those two stones are called the Urim, which is light, and the Thummim, which is perfection. And yeah, here I got the H. I forgot to take this H out because I don't think it should have an H there. But anyhow, you'll see the variance. I like to say Thummim because the Tav, from what I understand, does not have an H in it. It's just Tav. Anyhow, let's go. Urim and Thummim. It has a mem on the end of each one, mem and a mem, so they are plural. I want you to note here, in that same verse, it says, and thou shalt put. The transliteration from the interlinear scripture has, and you give. So this is what we take over to here. Thou shalt put. Where's the authority? Who gave the command? If you look here, it's Tav, Tav. And if you go back a little bit further, it has the noon letter here, life. That's an interesting connection. And you shall put the breastplate of judgment, the Urim and Thummim. Sorry, I read this wrong. Let me back up. And you shall put in the breastplate of judgment, the Urim and Thummim, and they shall be upon Aharon's heart when he goeth in before Yahuwah. And Aharon shall bear the judgment of the children of Israel upon his heart before Yahuwah continually. Again, you'll see the word Thummim here. They have an H. That's why I left it. It's a quote from the scripture, so I left it as this way. This is just a more marking the variance that you're going to see. And I hope you get used to this variance going through different sources. It's important to be able to understand the variances and go with it. Anyhow, at this point, we understand the Urim and the Thummim are put in the breastplate of judgment. I should have had this emphasized, but I don't. Two Tavs. Does that give an indication of importance? A very serious covenant from Yahuwah? Could that be? Then I want you to note the noon letter. That is the promulgation of life. Connected to this first Tav and the second Tav is a covenant of life. You are to give these in the breastplate of judgment, you are to give these two stones placed inside. If you pay attention to these two stones, you will have life. That is Yahuwah's covenant, Tav, to Yisrael. Not just back then, to you today, the Urim and Tumim. The breastplate, Yod, He, no, it's He, Yod, Vav. That's the Hebrew letters there. They become, in terms of the Urim and Tumim, this word does not have a Tav to identify them. So if you look down here, they become, there's the transformation process, but there's no Tav here. I find that quite interesting. Where is the mark of authority for these stones? How come there's no Tav identification for authority? Why not? It is H1961, and it does have the transformation here. Why? If you look on the right, you'll see this pink box here, and the word unthuf, unthuf, H5414. If we look onto this verse over here, Exodus 28:30, we're going to read about it. And into the breastplate of right ruling, you shall put the Urim and Thummim, and they shall be on the heart of Aharon when he goes in before Yahuwah. And Aharon shall bear the right ruling of the children of Yisrael on his heart before Yahuwah continually. Who has the authority for right ruling? Note the double tavs over here. You give. You are to place these stones inside of the breastplate. Remember, it's in a pocket. Were these stones covenanted for right ruling? Do these tavs identify a character? Who has the authority for judgment? Right ruling. You might not be used to this terminology. I see this in the Hallelujah scriptures. Right ruling, it's the same as judgment. Mishvot. Very, very serious. Yahuwah is the only one that has the authority for judgment in his kingdom, identified by the Tav Tav, two Tavs over here. So we just need to search a little bit for the authority to find where the authority is for this transformation period. They shall become. Now it begins to get really interesting. Again, we see judgment or right ruling. And judgment is from the Interlinear Scripture Analyzer. And into the breastplate, notice I have this emphasized, into the breastplate of right ruling you shall put Urim and Tumim, and they shall be on the heart of Aharon when he goes in before Yahuwah. And Aharon shall bear the right ruling of the children of Israel on his heart before Yahuwah continually. Into the breastplate. They were not on the shoulders, and they were not on the outside. The Urim and Tumim stones were inside the breastplate of judgment. Up next, we're going to have a look at Urim. Pure light. I want you to look over here. Urim, these are the letters Aleph, Vav, Resh, Yod, Mim. This is plural. It's an indication this word is plural. We see that through the mem at the end. I want you to note for later, it's a masculine noun. Let's read about it. Urim, stones kept in a pouch on the high priest's breastplate, used in determining Yahuwah's decision in certain questions and issues. In a pouch on the breastplate. Lights. I want you to look at H217 in a minute. Why? Because this indicates this is a plural. This word urim is lights. How many lights is there? Can we Can we allow ourselves to think a little bit outside the box here? What if this word for light means all the spectrum, all the different colors of lights? If this light indicated Yahuwah, and just think about the rainbow, the colors of the rainbow, or go snorkeling in Hawaii, go snorkeling down there and look at those fish. You want to see colors? You want to see every color there is possible? Go snorkeling in Hawaii and look at those colors. Now, here we come back to lights. What about this word? What if these lights are the full, complete spectrum of color as we know it, even beyond what we can see with the human eyes? Now, do we have an idea what this rock would look like? This rock in the breastplate, inside the breastplate? Do you think it might be ultra colorful? Think about the flowers that Yahuwah makes, all the exotic, wild looking flowers, the colors, the color combinations. And here we have lights, colors. I think this rock would be absolutely fascinating to have a look at. One day we will. Anyhow, that's just my thoughts on the lights. Let's look at H2117 because it says here it's plural. This word would indicate it's just singular. It's still a masculine noun, but this word is or. Have you heard us speak about the light at creation? Singular. Yahusha says, I am the light of this world. So who was standing at the door of Beit, the doorway of the kingdom? Beit being the first letter in Bereshit. It would be Yahusha. He's at the door. I am the door. I am the light of life. I am the light of this world. He was creating this world with the first word of Genesis 1:1, Bereshit. That light was there at creation. He was creating this earth. He stamped his characteristic of light at the very instant. Oh man, how do you even know how to describe that? His characteristic was before it was seeded onto this earth. His Tav characteristic, his identity of light was seeded onto this earth as he was speaking. Look at this. Or it's a masculine noun. I am the light of this world. Masculine noun. This was singular. Yahusha is single. And this one is plural. Many lights. I am states existence. I am the light of this world. Do you think that light was anything less than the full color spectrum available? I don't. I think creation was absolutely astounding at that first word, Bereshit. I don't think we have any idea the color spectrum that was available at that time. One day we will. Can we see the first three-letter results on the first cycle signature at creation? Here's that word, or, light, and it's plural, so it's orim. Tav, signature, sign, seal, and mark. I believe Yahuwah did that instantly as he spoke this. I should say, let me rephrase this. I believe Elohim did this instantly as he spoke it into creation. His signature was seeded onto this earth. Seeded from where? Seeded from Zion onto this earth. Creation's pure light came from this word. It came from Yahushua HaMashiach. He said, I am the light of this world. And people want to tell me that darkness came first. Sorry, I don't buy it. Or light. What about fire? Isn't that a form of light? Well, when we look at the definition down here, flame, light of fire. Well, this is from Strong's, so maybe Strong's is not correct. Maybe we don't have any indication of light being a fire, or do we? How about we read a small portion from Gesenius? Brightness of fire, flame. There it is. Oh, I forgot to underline this one. It says here, and fire itself. Well, how can that be? Fire is fire, it burns things up. Is it just light? Is Yahuwah fire light? Could it be? Have we ever heard of a burning bush? Could there be fire in the light? What about Moshe and the fire light? Was it not the light from the fiery bush that first attracted Moshe's attention? Now, you will note here I didn't put the burning bush. I do not believe it was burning. I believe it was light. I believe it was fire light in that bush. That fire had no interest in the bush. It occupied the bush beyond any doubt, but it was not consuming that bush. It had no desire to consume that bush. It was light that attracted Moshe. Moshe, take off your sandals. You are on holy ground, or on Kodesh ground. Sorry, I should say that. Who was and who is that light in the fiery bush? Could it be that light is Yahusha and Yahuwah, their signature all in one? A Tav signature? I am the light of the world. Again, who was in that bush? And what about the fiery furnace? It was fire. That fire was not interested in consuming the three men. But who was in that fire? I am the light of the world. Can we consider that as a fiery light furnace? I'm going to move on here to Gesenius here, more on the Owr Light. You'll see up here, Aleph Vav Resh, light. I'm just going to be reading in the pink underlines. He has it as lights, used of the sacred lot of the Hebrews. Interesting. These sacred lots, which were only consulted by the high priest in matters of great moment, were borne by him in or upon his breastplate, as appears from Exodus 28, verse 30. Moving over to here, and from their brightness. And he says here that, but Philo teaches that the Urim and Thummim were two little images put between the double cloth of the breastplate, one of which symbolically represented revelation and the other truth. Did you notice I have this line through little images? Scripture tells us that they were engraved rocks. They were transformed. They were not little images. So I took the liberty to cross this out. You do with it what you want. Down here, down below, the same word, or brightness of fire, of flame, and fire itself. How about the refining fire? What kind of light is that? So let's look at Aharon's second rock, Tumim. It has the definition of perfection. If that's the definition of perfection, if Yahuwah is perfection, remember he gave this rock to Aharon's breastplate and virtually told them, this is who I am, this is how you will know me, then I can ask you, is perfection at creation possible? Would that be his Tav signature? So where then did the where then did the Tohu, Bohu, and Hoshek come from? Was they from Yahuwah? What Tav indicates, and what color would that Tav be? What about Tumim? Here's the word, Tumim. You'll see how they pronounce it here. Masculine noun. That's interesting. Come down here, we hit the bottom, we see Tumim, perfection. Perfection. Perfection, basically, the fullness of integrity. I did not know how to write this out. And I thank Charlene for helping me with this. because I cannot describe perfection. I am human. I do not have that ability to describe it. So thank you, Charlene, for writing this. Unfortunately, the English language and the human comprehension is completely inadequate to express the truth of what should be said. Perfection, tumim. When your creator, Elohim, created this earth, is it even possible that it was created with his signature of perfection at the opening milliseconds? I say count on it. Where did that tohu, bohu, and choshek come from? So if we come over here and we look at this box here, the highlighted in light green, I want you to note these two letters, tav, mem. This is the root. This up here is tumim. This is tum. No, not tum as what Yehusha was put into, but tum. I know it sounds the same, but let's go with it. Let's look at these two letters. Faites attention ici. Oh, I heard that lots when I was in French class. Pay attention. That's what it's saying. Attention here. Look closely. Faites attention ici. Tav, tumim. Again, perfection down here. Tell me, what is the first letter of this H8550 Hebrew word representing? Could it be Yahuwah, Elohim? Is there anybody else that is perfect? Is there anybody else that can represent perfection? Is it possible? Could it be a Tav being the first letter? And I ask you here, please keep Genesis 1, verse 2a, Ayata, under your hat while we consider who is being identified here. Why is this Tav orange? Shouldn't it be blue? Or maybe it should be black. Why is it orange? Because I'm trying to stay neutral here. I want to suggest to you that there is a Tav in Genesis 1, 2, verse A, or sorry, verse 2a. I'm trying to present to you the idea that there's a Tav there that needs your decision. You need to understand, you need to consider what type of Tav it is, who it's identifying, and why, and how does it affect the start of your Sabbath. That's the ultimate reason for this series of study. Why do you start your Shabbat as you do? Do you start it at sunset in the darkness? Or do you start it at dawn in the light as written throughout Scripture? That's the purpose of this orange Tav. I want you to color your own Tav. Coming back to Tumim, perfection, with an identification signature. What color is your Tav? Presta attention aquí. Again, pay attention. Perfection. What if this Tav, perfection, was the signature which Yahusha established, note that word established, instantly with his voice at creation? Are we remembering the three Tavs preserved in Genesis 1:1? What color would those Tavs be? Could a life-sustaining habitation within light, could that have existed in verse 1? Three Tavs? What color would they be? Maybe they would be every color of the color spectrum beyond what we understand. Remember I told you about the two root letters, the Tav and the Mem? Well, we're going to look at that right now. That's the root of Tumim. And I kept this spelling here because it matches the spelling down here. So just bear with me with the variance of spelling. Let's go with it. Tum, Tav Mem, tum. How does Gesenius define it? Integrity, wholeness, fullness, integrity of mind, innocence. Right there, that word eliminates everybody else except Elohim. Everybody. There is not one that has innocence other than Elohim. So we come down to here. Here's the plural, tamim, truth. Very, very solid definition. The Tav identifies a character signature while revealing a covenanted purpose. I'm going to read this again. The Tav identifies a character signature while revealing a covenanted purpose. So when you go to Genesis 1:1, what is a covenanted purpose there? When you go to Genesis 1, verse 2, what is the covenanted purpose there? And what color is it? A Tav exudes a specific tenacity for identifying, by reason of, a distinguished mark and or particular sign. Can I add color? It was from these two character signatures that the Israelites were to receive their instruction from the breastplate of Aharon, the Aleph and Tav. I am the beginning and the end, the absolute authority, Aleph Tav. Well, where does this word lights come into connection? Urim, there's the word, and there's the word tumim. He said, I am the beginning and the end. Is there a connection to Urim, lights, and Tumim, lawlessness? Was there a signature at creation? I think you've heard that question before, but I need to emphasize it. Examining Urim, I want you to note over here this letter He. The He is a prefix which is not integral with this base word. So I'm going to black it out. Now what do we have? What starts this word now? Aleph. Who does this Aleph represent? Could it be Elohim? Why is this English spelling here instead? Why is it this way? A-U-R-I-M instead of just a U? Well, this rendition is superior in my thinking, superior in revealing the original Hebrew letters, Aleph, Vav, Resh, Yod, Mem. Note the Aleph letter that introduces the word. There we are. You look over here, you take away the prefix, it's the Aleph. That's part of the Aleph Tav. This is in the Urim. Aleph, Elohim. This reflects the Yod concept, the hand of Yah definition. What about Tumim? Can we find the same idea in here? Again, note the He prefix, which is not integral with the base word. See, if you come over here, you'll see this E, it represents, I'm going to back this up. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Didn't work. When this block is not here, this E represents the K letter. And it is not part of the base word. You can see that with this hyphen here. It's not part of the word. They're telling you that the base word is just tumim. But this hey is here. It's telling you, hey, pay attention, look here. Are you noticing this? It's calling your attention. The Hebrew letters are very, very descriptive. Anyhow, let's get back to the word, tumim. Now that this hey is blocked out because it's not part of the base word, it's just a prefix indicating context. The tav is the beginning of this word. Remember, Hebrew goes right to left. Tav is part of the Aleph Tav. It's kumim, perfection. What is Aleph Tav? That is Yahusha himself, or Elohim himself, or Yahuwah himself. However you want to say it, they are one. Aleph Tav, I am the beginning and the ending. I am the perfection in light. Aleph Tav. The authority characteristics of Aharon's breastplate, perfection and light. Urim and Tumim. There's the two rocks. And this is the letters written or inscribed, engraved on them as a Tav identifying signature. Urim, Tumim, the two rocks. Isolating the authority on Aharon's breastplate. So if you notice, I've blacked out the letters of these words and left two letters, Aleph, Tav. Aleph, Tav, Urim, and Tumim. Light in perfection. This is his authority. This is his signature, his sign, and his seal. This is who I am. The Aleph, we can put that in light blue for life. The Tumim, we can put it in royal blue. That is Torah instruction. It's not laws, it's instruction. You want to live in my kingdom? I give you the pathway. Here it is written out for you. You can choose this if you like. Aleph Tav, Yehusha HaMashiach, ultimately. What about we read here in Revelation 22:13? I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. I hope you notice this little character with the question marks over here. Alpha and Omega. The authority on earth, Aleph Tav, Yehusha HaMashiach. What if, and I say that a little sarcastically, what if Yehusha spoke Hebrew and Aramaic and not Greek? Would it be possible that he would have said, I am the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end, the first and the last? Aleph and the Tav, right there in Genesis 1:1. Creation's authoritative signature. The first word gives you the sign, seal, and mark of who he is. And then we have the Aleph Tav, right here in Genesis 1:1. Urim, instant light for habitation on earth. Tumim, Torah, perfect instruction, Genesis 1:1. And we read in English, and Elohim created, or actually some verses say, and God created the heavens and the earth. I like the Hebrew, thank you. Aleph Tav, there's a connector. Part 3 is going to go into that word in a big way. Connecting the Aleph Tav to this earth. Are you a child of the light or a child of the darkness? Genesis 1 verse 2. The beginning and the ending, Aleph Tav. Creation's authority signature, Genesis 1:1, the Aleph Tav. Is it possible that light may have come first at the instant earth was spoken into existence? Tav. Here we see that in the Tumim. We see it in the breastplate and in the covenants. Light, Urim, Moshe's face. Remember when he was up the mountain, he came down, his people couldn't even look at him. He had to cover his face. And we think we know what LED's brightness is. No, we don't have a slightest clue how bright light is, real light. How about light in the Transfiguration? That's written as being very, very bright. Yehusha says, I am the light. Or then we come to the fire. Moshe and the fiery bush. I'm sure that was pretty bright. It got his attention. Mount Sinai, the people were trembling. They were terrified. Not just because of the light. There was others too, but I imagine that light was bright. And what about Elijah and Mount Carmel? That light come down and consumed the sacrifice. Consumed the water too. You didn't know that light could consume light or water, did you? And what about creation? Are there more Tovs there? Ye are children of the light, not of darkness. And you read the two names. Light is Yahuwah, darkness is Satan. The clash of the Tovs is what's coming up. Please keep Genesis 1, verse 2, a yata, in the back of your hat while we consider this further. Urim, light, that includes the Tumim, perfection. The Tumim covenant sign marker carries the Urim. It's somewhat of a symbiotic relationship, if I can describe it like that. I don't know how better to describe it. The Urim includes the Tumim. Light includes the perfection. Perfection includes the light. They work together, hand in hand. They are not separable. They are one unit. This is realized by the context specified. 2 stones, plural, each one, placed in the breastplate, side by each, to be a character, a sign, a signature, and a seal via light. For a visual reminder of exactly who and what Yahuwah was and is to Yisrael yesterday, today. That's what this Urim lights are described to us as, and the Tumim, the description, are for us. It's for us today. Is it even remotely possible that this same character signature was embedded, installed, and established instantly at creation with the Creator's voice, his paintbrush? He is an artist, by the way. He would apply his signature. And Yahuwah does not change. He tells us that. As light is first all through Scripture, even from verse 1. When, therefore, did Yahuwah find occasion to change? If darkness came first, lights and perfection at the very beginning. Flawlessness at the very beginning. There was no contamination, not at the very first of cycle number 1. What about this word established? We need to look at this word. Attention to detail here. I was speaking to you about the different spectrum light, or spectrums of light. This is about one tenth of a percentage of the spectrum of light. I can only imagine what Yahuwah has in store for us. It's going to be absolutely astounding. In the beginning, and I wish I could describe it better, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. By the way, if he created the heavens without a sun, moon, and stars, because some people want to say they were created in cycle number 4, here it says in verse 1 that he created the heavens, what would be in it? What would he have to create if there was nothing in it? Just a thought. Looking at this light season, this is in the beginning, the very first light season. Was not Earth's beginning created to reflect the character of Yahuwah? Isn't there Tovs that indicate his signature? How could Earth receive the signature of an evil God? Note the T, different color, an evil God. How did that come to be? Genesis 1:2 is what we're identifying. Carefully note this word, signature. Now we're coming on to the word establish. And this earth, he established it. We learned about that in Isaiah 45:18 and Jeremiah 33:2, established. Let's have a look at this word a little bit more. The pronunciation is kun. Let's look at the definitions of kun. Be fixed, to be firmly established, be stable, be fixed, be arranged, make firm, furnish, to arrange, be fastened. That's a serious one. He says, I did them suddenly, and they come to pass. Suddenly. There was no hesitation. There was no gap theory. It was instantaneous beyond even our ability to comprehend. Yahuwah established. Well, let's look a little closer at this word. Notice over here, I have the ancient Hebrew letters. This represents the kaf, and the word or the name of the letter here is kaf, a covering, as in a garment, an udder, order, shelter of wings. So why is an udder contextually appropriate here? Well, an udder is a supplier and sustainer of life. How about this word? He established it. He established the ability to sustain life. He established this earth to be inhabited. Does that present a problem already with tohu and bohu? Let's go to the vav. Here's the ancient vav. It's a hook. It can be a nail, and it can connect, and it can be a place on which to hang something. Ideas, thoughts, concepts, identities, standards. Coming down to the noon. Here is the letter that promulgates life, promotes life, infuses life. It springs forth. So an udder, when he established it, he established that which can supply life, that which sustains life, and it's connected to the infusion of life, and it springs forth life in the noon. Is there any doubt in your mind that Yahuwah created this earth in light, in perfection? So where do we get this idea that the earth was created in darkness, in tohu and bohu? Who wants to tell you that? Who would prefer that darkness comes first and that you start your Shabbat at darkness, as in sunset? Who would like to do that? Whose tav is that, and what color is it? Are we beginning to understand the color of a tav is important? Yahuwah created this earth for life to be inhabited. It was to be a supplier of life. It was to sustain life permanently. The thriving in life theme was to be the eternal covering, sheet in Hebrew, a garment, and understood from the Hebrew letter nun, life. This was Yahuwah's mindset from the instant he spoke earth into existence. Life is in light. Malachi 3:6. I do not change. He said, I am the door. He was creating a kingdom at the very first word of Bereshit. Beit has that place for a door. I am the light. I am the life of this world, the light and the life. He was there at the very first letter of your scripture. Light came first. Yahuwah established at creation's Bereshit. He established earth's garment, being a supplier and sustainer of life. He connected all this through the life factor. He connected it to the ability to infuse and spring forth life. It was a double portion of life support at the initial outset of the beginning, Bereshit. And people insist that Yahuwah created this earth in tohu, bohu, and choshek, evil contamination, for us to live in. I believe he told us you are children of the light. He did not say you are children of the darkness. Or light at the very beginning, Isaiah 45:18. Yahuwah's intention, the first light season, was a creation for habitation. It was in pure light. There was no twilight, no mixture. It was pure light, and every color of the spectrum was there, every one. First light season, created for a habitation, created in light for life. Yahuwah is light. He commanded light within the Urim and Thummim as a remembrance of him. This is who I am. This is how you will recognize me. This is how you will understand my judgments. This is my character. This is my sign, my seal, and my signature. Urim and Thummim. Yahuwah intended for his children to inhabit on the earth that which was supported by the light of life. Instantly he spoke, and it was done. Ye are children of the light, not of darkness. Created for habitation. Well, we have a few more slides to go, not very far. Hang with me. Created for habitation and the first light season in Owr original light. Now comes a bold statement. The first 12 hours of the first cycle of creation began with Yahuwah's Owr Light within a covenant Tav. Can this statement be supported by the scriptures? Another question. Will Yahuwah face a dark Tav? That's not what it says. Let me start again. Will Yahuwah face a dark reason to defend his Tav? Will there be a need to restore his covenant of the light season and the covenant of the night season? I hope you now are familiar with these T's that symbolize Tav. I can read this again. Will there be a need to restore Yahuwah's covenant of the light and his covenant of the night? Have those been mixed up? Have they been jumbled? Have they been brought into contamination by a different colored Tav? How important is Genesis 1, verse 2, and that Tav in the word Hayatah? Yahuwah established his character signature covenant of light, first and foremost, with the frequency of his voice. Next up, we're going to see the restoration of tzadikah, that is righteousness, in light, both physical and spiritual. Restoration began in verse 2b and was sealed in Genesis 1, verse 3. The Ruach of Yahuwah imposed a frequency of righteousness by his voice on the waters. Now the question, was it a clash of the Tavs? Genesis 1, verse 2. Was it a dark artist in verse 2? And the earth was? Is that what's supposed to be there in that verse? And the earth was? Is it 1961 Haya? No Tav? Hidden? Camouflaged? Hold on to your hat. We're going to be going into this in part 3. Was there a dark artist, a dark Tav in Genesis 1:1? Careful. That's an interesting question. Was there any darkness in Genesis 1:1? What color was the three Tavs of Genesis 1:1? To this point, we have seen clear evidence of the Tav positively identifying character. So we ask, to Tav or not to Tav? That is the first question. Then comes this one. Whose Tav stands glaringly dark in Genesis 1, verse 2a? Is it 1961 Haya? No Tav? Hold on to your hat. Part 3 is coming. Is it Tav? Or is it Tav? Color becomes very important. This is the end today. I thank you for spending your time with me. I hope you were able to follow me with this. Thank you for your time. Please send any questions to me, Timothy Asselford, at questions@studythecalendar.com. And if you see that pi emblem down there, yes, that is the symbol for eternity. That is on the 360-day calendar of Yahuwah that we will be returning to in the future. He said it. Shalom.